Not, I mean, I've had a few in-game debates now. So there's just more than Phil. But, Phil, the good thing about Phil is Phil and I understood each other's personality very well. And Phil was not sensitive. And, when you're coaching a team as a head coach, you can't be too sensitive either, because there are going to be some times where the players are going to try to get you too. And if you kind of show that you can't take it, then you lose respect. And secondly, then you're not as effective when you're kind of giving it out. So, but we understood each other. We just kind of came along at a necessary time for both of us. He was very, very important to my career. And I think as time went on, I became more important to his. And even though it started off not too well, it finally wound up real good. And it's just, he was my guy. He's my quarterback, and I was going to back him. But that doesn't mean he was immune. And he, your quarterback's got to be a fighter, and he can't be sensitive, and he can't be a guy that pouts, because he's got to run the next play. And Phil never was a guy that kind of went in the tank, or, even if he went in it temporarily, he was out of it in a few minutes. So, I was lucky to have him, Mike.
Okay, and I'm telling you, I'm not telling you anything I haven't told you before. And Ernie Accorsi and I joke about this all the time. How often one of us or both of us will quote you. And I'm paraphrasing what you said about quarterbacks, but you know what the quote was. You find out what kind of quarterback you have, and you can speak to this better than I do. After he's thrown 3 or 4 interceptions, and the media's after him, and the fans are after him, and everybody wants you to play his backup.
Well, his nose might be broken, and the other players are looking at him sideways, too. And the coaches are looking at him sideways, and the fans are booing him, and the press is writing bad things about him. But now it's Wednesday, Mike. And you as a quarterback, have to get back into that huddle and demonstrate to everyone involved with this team that you can lead them. That's when you find out. Because some of them fold under that kind of duress. And others, respond favorably. And so, these young guys that start off, and hey, nobody could be more impressed than I am with Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz. I mean, my God, you got to be living in a closet to not see positive things. But 6 weeks into an initial NFL season, that's not the test. That's not the test. The test is coming, but that's not the test.
Coach, it sounds like a simple question, but it's not. It's complicated. What the heck would you do if Odell Beckham Jr. were one of your players, and he's that gifted? Because we just were talking about Lawrence for completely different reasons. Who's that gifted, but can voluntarily turn himself into this much of a pain in the ass?
Well, here's my theory on it, Mike. Now, somebody might take exception to this, but here's the way I see it. I'm going to go back in history. One of the best self-promoters, or maybe the best self-promoter that I've ever seen in sports, is a guy named Dennis Rodman. Dennis would paint his hair red and then create some kind of bizarre look, whether it be with whatever it was for that week. And the next week, his hair might be yellow, and the next week it might be green, but he recognized and appreciated the fact that whatever he did was going to be paid attention to. So he began, and I don't want to say self-promoting, but that's really what it was. He was self-promoting Dennis Rodman by these bizarre looks that he would create. Now,
right.
Next generation, here comes Deion. Now, Deion does those little dances in the end zone, and everybody puts those on television because they're good television. And then comes Terrell Owens, who will sign autographs for popcorn and do the same thing. And now we have a quarterback in the league. At every press conference after the game, he comes in a different costume. One week he's a carnival barker, and next week he's Mr. Peanut. The next week he's got a derby hat on, and are you talking about the reigning MVP of the league? I'm not talking about anybody specifically. I'm just telling you what I witnessed. Now, Odell Beckham and other players like Odell Beckham, they grow up watching this. They watch it. They see it, and they see who's getting the attention. And all of these actions on the part of their predecessors say, hey, look at me. At some
and it's not just in sports. It's not just in sports. It's you see it in.
Of course, it is. It's Madonna. It's Lady Gaga. It's not just in sports. You got that right. No one has stopped it. No one stopped Dennis. No one stopped Dion. No one has stopped it. So they know when they do these things, it's going to get attention, and some of them need that attention, and they want that attention because that promotes them. And, you hear the word brand. That promotes the brand. That's a word the agents use now. We have to promote our brand. So all I say is, I'm not a guy that doesn't like to have fun, so I like some fun until at such point in time it acts as a deterrent to the team winning. And when it becomes more important to be, hey, look at me, than it is winning, then I take strong exception to it.
More with Coach Parcells right after Mike tells you about Kronos.
Kronos knows that many organizations maintaining a modern workforce of hourly, full, and part-time workers, for them, it can be a challenge. This is especially true for human resources professionals working hard to attract and retain all the best talent. That's why Kronos puts HR, payroll, talent, and timekeeping on a single cloud-based platform. It's one specially designed to give HR professionals supporting a blended workforce a whole new level of confidence. With it, they have everything they need to tackle nearly any human resources challenge and are empowered to not just find and hire the right people, but to engage, motivate, and reward them every single step of the way. Learn more about Kronos HR solutions for the modern workforce and the people who support them, because Kronos is at heart a people business at kronos.com/HR swagger. Kronos, workforce innovation that works. Tell me if this story is true. Because I want it to be true that when Phil McConkey was returning punts for you, he had dropped a couple. And one day you're standing next to his locker and you're going through your pockets and you're not talking to him. You're just going through your pockets and like, God, where is that? And finally he says, what are you looking for, Coach? And you said Meggett's phone number because Meggett had been his predecessor as your punt returner. Is that story true?
Well, no, actually the story is reversed. McConkey was Meggett's predecessor.
Oh, okay. Yes, I conflated it.
So I did it to Meggett. I said, I'm looking for McConkey's phone number. So,
and then,
I still have punt returners. This is a young man that's playing for the Saints now that's from down here in Florida where I live in the winter. And he was a rookie free agent punt returner. And he ran a 57-yard return last week for the Saints. And his name's Tommy Lee Lewis, nice young man that I've been knowing for quite a while and spent a lot of time with. So I'm still working with those punt returners a little bit. And we have the Atlanta punter that lives here in the off season too. So we kind of got a full crew. If I have a returner to work with, we can use. And then the punter, Matt Bosher, he comes and punts for us. So we can get some real good practice against pro style, competition. It's good.
It's always been a hard job coaching pro football or any level of football, and you've coached at every level in all sorts of different venues. Okay. And obviously everything gets harder and bigger as we go. Even now in politics, Coach, when they say, well, this happened to Bill Clinton in the 90s. Yeah, but it happened before the world of social media, where everybody's hanging on every word, and one misstep can cause a conflagration. Okay. So it's a long way around for me to ask you, do you think it is harder to coach players and coach your team now than when you first came to prominence with the Giants?
Yeah, I do think it is. I think that's, the way the world communicates is certainly much different. The attitude of status, I think, is escalated. I think status is very, very important to a lot of young people now. And I do think it is more difficult. Not that the game is more difficult, not that the players are really that much different, but the ancillary issues and people and things surrounding the players are now greater in number than ever before, and all of them can have a marked effect. And so, yeah, I do think it's more difficult. And, and the people who critique these jobs now are less tolerant and less patient. And, when I first went in the NFL, the people that owned the teams were all football men. The majority was, the Houses, the Rooneys, the Maras, on and on. Even the fledgling American Football League owners, Lamar Hunt and Ralph Wilson, and the great owners we had there, Al Davis, of course, were all football men. Now, that's not the case. They're businessmen, and they don't have backgrounds in football, and they're relying on other people, and other people have agendas. And, you can't go right to the horse and like you used to be able to do and get an understanding, because those football men that owned the teams were very experienced, and they knew and they'd seen it and they'd lived it. So you could talk to them about a problem that you were having and they would understand it. So it is more difficult, I think, Mike.
And when
Still
Bill
beats working now. Still beats working.
Well, I say the same thing about my job. We're talking to Bill Parcells, the great Bill Parcells, of the Mike Lupica Podcast. All right, so Belichick's supposed to succeed you. It's a line of succession with the Jets, and then he undoes that, and he goes to the Patriots, and the rest is history. And I remember writing at the time, and I'm sure you were royally pissed in the moment, that I actually kind of I didn't necessarily approve of the way he'd gone about it, but I kind of understood just from knowing him and knowing the situation, that I thought that maybe this, in his mind, was his way for him to finally establish his own identity and get out of your shadow. That whole episode, how much of a strain did it put on, a relationship that had been so strong for so long?
I would say a temporary strain. Definitely. Yeah. It was, I had to do what I thought was best, and he had to do what he thought was best. We just didn't agree on it, that's all. But that was a long time ago, and, as time goes on, and Bill's experience is so much greater now, and his success is so much greater, and now he's experienced many of the same things that I had experienced as a head coach, particularly with assistant coaches and some disappointment with one another and here and there. I mean, he's been through that all himself. And so he knows now from a retrospective view where I was. And it's, but it was a temporary, but we communicate now well, and I see him once in a while. We talk about football, and I like him. I think he does a tremendous job, and I have a rooting interest for his quarterback up there, the young man Jacoby Brissett. He's down here. I've known him since he was 16, and I'm anxious to see how his career unfolds, he couldn't be in a better place than he is with Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels and those guys.
When the thaw came, who picked up the phone? You or Belichick?